So for the body limber, guys, I'm just going to get Thais to come down onto the floor. We're going to do some hip casts from kneeling. So she's just going to go onto her hands and knees. And then you guys should know the drill here. She's going to tuck her tail under a little bit, and then from here push through the floor, and then just bring that knee up towards her elbow and just draw a nice big circle. So we're just going to start to warm up the hips a little bit, warm up hips and ankles a little as a limber before we get into the main stretches today. So for those who are here and thinking, oh, what's going on? Why are these two both here? Like we explained yesterday, what we're doing is we're recording sort of shorter, essentially, classes for you guys. Because if anyone's followed along the Zoom recording after the event, you'll notice the quality of the Zoom recording isn't very good. So what we're looking to do is essentially record the classes and some other stuff so that when you follow it in your own time, the quality of the recording is a little bit better. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It just means that when we do these sessions, they'll seem a little different to perhaps what you've already done before. So let's just work through that nice big circles. Hey, Kiana, how are you? Well done. Where are you at the moment? I can't hear you. Do you want to unmute? Do you want to? I can't. She's on mute.
Oh.
I'm in Sydney in hotel quarantine.
Oh, are you? You're back.
Yes, I am back. So
how was it?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's amazing.
Cheers. No, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, I bet it was. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's change hip curls on the other side. Awesome. Well, join us for as many classes as you want while you're in quarantine, I'm sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
That's all right. Nice. All right. So nice big circles, guys, on the other side, just circling that knee around. So again, you'll notice Thais is just pushing through the floor, sucking her belly button in, and she's just doing the biggest circle she can one way and then back the other way. So we're just warming up the hips a little bit. We don't need to be super strict with this for today. And for those joining in late, we are just doing a little bit of a body limber. We will then have a short pause and we're just going to set up slightly differently to film the rest of the class. But let's just warm up our joints a little bit first. All right, so we're just going to keep working through this, guys. Probably another 20, 30 seconds on this side.
We've got the logo pinned at the moment, just the logo. We're not seeing you.
Ah, okay. Dan, do you know why that's doing that? Oh, hang on, I know why.
Oh, just the camera button? Yeah. See the little camera on screen?
Yeah. All right.
Too close. Sorry, guys. 1 second. 1, 2.
All right, so guys, I don't know if you can see me, but just come into a frog position now. So Thais is just going to take her knees nice and wide, ankles in line with the knees as well. And we're just going to rock the hips forwards and backwards, and Dan's just trying to sort out that tech problem there. So just rocking our hips forwards and backwards, getting a little bit of a stretch through the insides of the legs. So just gently forwards and back. We'll have about 45 seconds here. So we are just limbering a little bit, guys, getting a little bit of an adductor stretch. And just checking that your ankles are in line with your knees. Nice, guys. So just another maybe 15 seconds there. From there, guys, I just want you, and I know you probably can't see me there, just trying to resolve that. Just push through your hands, come with your knees back underneath your hips into a falling position. I think we might be back. And now Thais is just going to move through some cat-cow, all right? So she's just going to suck her belly button in round through the spine. And then she's just going to anteriorly tilt her pelvis and press her ribcage down towards the floor. So we're just working through cat-cow. So just very gently, guys, working through that. Just move a little bit faster. So just a little bit like yoga, guys. She's just looking up towards the sky and then tucking the tail and rounding the spine. And we're just working through it less like sort of chin stretch, I suppose, and a little bit more like yoga. So we're just working through some flexion and extension of our back. Okay, so I just want you to keep limbering through that a couple of times. It just helps to loosen off the lower back before we come into some more stretches. Today we will have a bit of a front splits focus when we do the bulk of the class. So we're going to be doing some calves and hamstrings, some hip flexors, and then we'll be finishing in a bit of a front splits position. All right, so just finish the cat-cow that you're on, and then from here, drawing some nice big ankle circles. So I'll just get Thais to just draw some circles. So just from kneeling there, she's just in a kneeling position, guys, and she's just going to draw some circles with her ankles. So just drawing big circles around, just loosening off the ankles a little bit. So just working in one direction. And when we get into the bulk of the class, we'll do a little bit more stuff for the feet. All right, and changing direction back the other way. So just nice big circles again. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to get her to do here is just tuck her toes under, sit back onto her big toe, and then just alternate between toes tucked under. So she's just going to alternate between plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. So just tuck the toes under and then untuck the toes. Yeah. So just those two positions, guys, just stretching out the feet a little bit before we get going. All right, so just work through a few of those. All right, so finishing there, and then the last thing here, just as a limber, is I'm going to get Thais just to come into a low lunge position with her hands either side of her front foot. So she's going to take one leg forwards, hands either side of her front foot potentially. When you do this, if you feel like it's easier to have your hands, a couple of yoga blocks underneath your hands, then you can do that. And then she's just going to take her back knee off the floor. So she's just in a low lunge with the back knee up, but sinking her back foot down. And now from here, she's just going to straighten her front leg as much as she can, just to get a bit of a hamstring stretch. Doesn't need to be super strong. And then just come back into that lunge position. And we're just going to limber through that a few times. So when you do this, guys, you don't need to straighten out your front leg loads. For Thais, you'll notice she's rather pregnant, so she's just doing her best effort trying not to squish her belly. So she's just straightening that front leg and then rocking back into a lunge. And all we're doing, guys, is moving between that hip extension on our back hip and that hamstring stretch on the front leg. So we're just starting to warm up those the main muscle groups that we're going to be sort of stretching today. So I just want you to work through that, perhaps another 20 or 30 seconds, just limbering in and out of those two positions, hip down, and straightening the front leg. And we'll just do a couple more of those. All right, so finishing the one that you're on there, guys, and we'll just change over to the other side. So we're just going to go hands either side of that front foot. I want you to sink that back hip down towards the floor. And then from here, just straighten your front leg, get a bit of a hamstring stretch, and then sink yourself back into that lunge. And we're just going to work our way through a few of those. Again, you don't need to straighten that front leg out super straight. We just get enough to get a bit of a stretch. And we're just limbering in and out of that position. Nice, guys. So just a couple more of those. Sinking your hip down and straightening the front leg. All right. So finishing the one that you're on. All right, and then from there, guys, we are just going to take a very short break just to set up for the start of the class. I will be introducing it because, like I said, these are going to be recorded for you guys to follow along a little bit later. So just give us 1 second, guys, while Dan just press the start on the cameras. Yeah. Alrighty. Hi guys, I'm here with Thais. We're going to go through a lower body stretch class. The focus of the class today is going to be sort of hip flexors and hamstrings. So we'll be working into a front splits position as we go. So what I'm going to get Thais to do, and actually what we will need today is a stick and maybe a couple of yoga blocks. So if you've got those things, I'll get you to grab it now. What I'm going to get Thais to do to begin with is just start by rolling out her calves. So I would like you to grab the stick. You're going to come down onto the floor and place the stick behind your knees. Now, for those who are following this class and don't have a stick, that's okay. You could just work through it. If I just quickly show you here, whilst Thais is rolling out her calves, you could just work through a stretch for the ankles here, just alternating between these two positions while she's doing that, okay? So what she's going to do, guys, is just spend about 60 seconds or so just gently rolling that stick down towards her heels. And then we're going to gently roll it back up towards the back of the knee. So she's just looking for areas there into her calf that feel quite tight. And we're just rolling up and down. It's a little bit like foam rolling your calves, I suppose you could say. So she's just working through that up and down. And I just want you to continue that. Like I said, we do have about 60 seconds. If there's one spot that feels fairly tight, then you could just go to that spot and you could just work into that. Yeah, so just rolling up and down into the calves. We have about 15, 20 seconds left. For some of us, this can be quite uncomfortable. So if you are finding it uncomfortable, you can lift some of your body weight slightly out of the stick and just use your hands to apply that pressure. All right, so guys, we're going to finish there. I'll get Thais to just take the stick out from behind her knees and then tuck her toes under, untuck her toes. And like I just showed you, we're just going to limber through the ankles a little. So she's just now moving between plantar flexion and dorsiflexion of the ankle and just stretching out the feet a little bit to start us off. So we will progress this, guys, into a bit of a stronger stretch for the calf. But we'll begin with a limber, and this looks a little bit like a yoga position that you might have done before. So what I'm going to get Thais to do from here is go into a downward facing dog. So she's just going to come up into this position. So get feet, and she's going to lift her heels up a bit. Now we've got to remember that Thais is fairly flexible, so she's going to be able to fairly easily pop her heels into the floor. But for most of us, I want you to lift your heels up slightly. Now you're going to press your right heel down and lift your left heel up and then alternate. So we're just essentially walking our heels into the floor one at a time and just starting to stretch out through the back of the leg. So she's getting a little bit of a stretch into her calves and her hamstrings. And then from here, you're just gently pressing your armpits back towards your thighs. And we're just starting to get that nice stretch down through the calf and the back of the leg. So just one heel down and the other heel down. And we're just going to work here for another 20 or 30 seconds. So I want you to remember to breathe in this position as well. So we want to make sure we're taking some nice deep breaths in. I understand it can be fairly fatiguing as well for your upper body. All right, so we're just going to do our last few reps of that, pressing that heel down into the floor. All right, so I'll get Thais just to release her knees down to the floor now. So she's going to come into this position. And then from there, guys, we are going to do a standing calf stretch, okay? Now, I'm going to be getting her to use the store bars. Most of you need to find a wall space in order to do this, all right? So she's going to actually be facing away from you. So you're going to see her back. But what she's going to do is bring her forearms up onto the store bars like this. Actually, split the stance like that. So she's just going to drive one heel backwards, all right? So what she's essentially in a short lunge position, okay? So right now she's driving her heel down towards the floor on this back leg, and she's squeezing the glute on this side as well, and she's pressing her hip forwards. And we're just getting a bit of a stretch here into the calf, okay? So I just want you to take some nice deep breaths into that position, driving the heel down, pushing the hip forwards and stretching out through the calf. Some of you may notice a bit of a hamstring stretch here, but we're mostly just getting a bit of a stretch here into our calf. And I just want you to breathe there for about 30 seconds more. For some of you, this will be quite strong, and others it's a fairly gentle stretch, okay? It really depends on how tight your calves are. So just take a nice deep breath into that position. Last 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, slowly coming out. All right, so we're just going to change over to the other side. So again, she's in a short lunge position. So it looks like a mini lunge, yeah? She's now going to drive this back heel down towards the floor, and the hip on this side, she's squeezing her glute and pushing her hips towards the store bars. So that hip extension here, or that opening of the front of the hip, is going to help really increase the stretch there into the calf. And just driving that heel down towards the floor. And just taking some nice deep breaths in. And we've just got about 30 or 40 more seconds there. Like I said, this is, for most of us, this is a fairly gentle stretch into our calf. It's not too strong. We're just starting to stretch out that posterior chain a little bit. And we're going to breathe here for another 20 seconds or so. Last. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, stopping there. All right, so from there, guys, I just want you to come to standing and just going to circle your hips off a couple of times. So I'll just get Thais to work through a few of those circles there, just one way, perhaps, and back the other way. So some of the stuff that we do again today is we're going to be having her facing away from the camera, okay? So she's going to have her back turned, and I'll try and explain to you as best as possible what she's going to be doing and perhaps do a little demo from the side as well, okay? So the first thing, though, that we are going to do before we get into any hamstring stretching is actually do a glute and piriformis stretch from 90-90, all right? So I'll just get Thais to come down onto the floor into a 90-90 position. So if I get her to actually turn sideways, so you can kind of see what she's doing here, what you'll notice is she's actually into a 90-90 position, which is where she has a right angle here at her front knee and a right angle at the back, okay? Now, this also could be in pigeon pose. So for those who know pigeon, if this position is not strong enough for you, then you can go into a pigeon position as well. And if this is very difficult for you to be here and you're falling over to the side, you might want to pop a yoga block underneath your hip. Okay, so that's fine as well. So she doesn't need that, I don't think. All right, now, guys, remember that Thais is not going to be able, she's pregnant, she's not going to be able to move as deep into the stretch perhaps as you can. But what I'm going to ask you to do here is place your fingertips onto the floor and pull your forehead forwards so you find a stretch into the front butt cheek, essentially. So she's looking for a stretch into glute and piriformis, all right? So we're just going to take some nice deep breaths to start with in this position. Now, whilst we're here, what I'm going to ask her to do is imagine that there's a brick wall in front of her and it's just out of reach and she's trying to put her head on the wall, okay? So right now she's got her right leg in front. She should be experiencing a stretch onto the outside of the right hip. So we're just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths in that position, just pulling forwards and finding that stretch, using the breath. So nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, just pulling forwards into that stretch. So we're always lengthening out of our hips. Now, in a moment, I'm going to get you to do a contraction, okay? So what that's going to look like is she's going to squeeze the front leg and push it down and forwards through the floor. Like she's trying to kick this front foot away from her through the floor, okay? So let's just take a nice deep breath in. I want you to flex your front leg and you're going to push it down and forwards through the floor. So off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, just draw yourself a little deeper into that stretch. We're going to do one more of those contractions. So remember, we're really trying to breathe in between these, just nice, long, slow inhales, exhales. So again, she's going to squeeze her front leg and she's just going to press that foot down and forwards through the floor again. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a nice deep breath in, and then again, forehead moves forwards to try and increase that stretch. This is all really passive. Apart from that little contraction, we're really trying to soften with the breath into each of those stretches. So you've got about 10 seconds left, just breathing into that. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Just slowly use her hands now to just press herself out of that position. And then in between, you can either go straight over to the other side and set up, or some people prefer to come up to kneeling and just do a little bit of a hip circles. Otherwise, we'll set ourselves up on the other side. So maybe a few little swivels in between is fine. All right, so she's just going to set up her 90-90 position now on the other side. So from here, again, we're looking for right angles. So you'll notice she's pulled this knee back, it's in line with the hip. This hip is actually sitting in an internal rotation too, which is a little bit of a stretch for some of us. And then she's got a right angle at that front knee as well. And now from here, she'll place her fingertips onto the floor and just move the forehead forwards into that stretch. So she's now going to be getting a stretch on the left for her butt cheek, basically. So that's glute piriformis. Now, a couple of options here with the upper body. You'll notice Taze has brought her elbows down to the floor, which is fine. Some of you might like to stay up on the fingertips. And you can also move your upper body sort of over the leg, over the foot, and decide which position here is giving you the best stretch into the outside of this front hip. And we're just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths into that position. Every time you exhale, you're pulling your forehead forwards towards that imaginary wall. So we're really searching for that stretch into glute and piriformis. So we'll work our way through a couple more rounds of breath. And then remember the contraction is going to be that front foot, the outside edge of it, you're pushing it down and forwards through the floor, like you're trying to kick your leg away from you through the floor. All right, so let's take a nice deep breath into the belly. As you exhale, pull yourself forwards into that stretch a little bit more. And now we're going to do that contraction. So I want you to press that front foot forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause, take a breath. And again, as you exhale, just try to increase the stretch a little if you can. All right, we're going to do one more contraction. So let's take again a nice deep breath in, and then press that front foot down and forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice deep inhale, and as you exhale, guys, we just have about 10 seconds left. Remember, you're really trying to soften with the breath in these positions, so we just want to take some nice deep breaths in, and as we exhale, just draw ourselves into that stretch a little further. Last 3, 2, and 1, and slowly making our way out of there. All right. So again, guys, once you've done that, you might want to come to standing and just sort of do a few little hip circles off. For some of us, that external rotation of the hip can be really, really tight, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is come to the wall into a hamstring stretch, okay? So we're going to go, and there's a little bit to this. It's a little bit complicated, so let me explain it quickly first, okay? She's going to be facing the wall, and she's going to go into a hamstring stretch here, straight hamstring stretch. Well, she'll have her hands on the wall. Right? We will then move with that foot across and get what we call an outer hamstring stretch. Okay, so we have a straight hamstring stretch and we have an outer hamstring stretch. In the outer hamstring stretch, that's where we're going to be doing some contracting. All right, I'm going to ask that we all stretch the same side at the same time so my cues make sense. So we're going to stretch our left hamstring first. Okay, so I'll talk you through the cues if you just listen carefully. All right, so Taya's is going to come to the wall, or you'll be at a wall. She's at the store bars. She's placed the ball of her left foot up onto the wall, okay? Her right knee is directly underneath the right hip, and she wants to square the hips towards the wall. Now, notice she's still very upright, okay? We're not rounding down over the leg here. When you're doing a hamstring stretch, guys, we want to make sure that for most of us, we don't want to lock this front leg out straight. So she can soften her knee in this hamstring stretch. Now that she's in this position, she's going to take a nice deep breath in and move her head towards the wall, okay? So that's what's going to bring the stretch on, all right? And we're just going to breathe passively here for about 60 seconds or so, just a straight hamstring stretch, all right? So again, back knee's underneath the hip, left ball of the foot here is on the wall. She's squaring her hips and moving her forehead towards the wall, okay? Just take some nice deep breaths in that position. And every time you exhale, you just think about moving into a slightly stronger stretch. So what I'm going to be asking you to do in a moment is back out of that stretch. The same foot, you're going to move it across so it's in front of the back knee, and then you get a stretch on the outside of the leg. That is where we will be contracting, okay? And I'm going to talk you through that in just a moment. All right, so let's take one more breath in that position. Nice deep breath in, and as you exhale, move yourself a little deeper into that stretch. All right, so from here, we're going to slowly back out of the stretch with the upper body a little bit. So lift the chest up. She's now going to take her left foot across, so it's just in front now of the back knee. From there, we're also going to square the hips, all right? So what just happened was she'll notice, and you guys should notice too, is a shift in the stretch to the outside of this front leg. So it's a slightly different hamstring stretch, okay? So again, we keep squaring the hips, and now pull that forehead forwards again towards the wall, okay? Now, the other thing that we could do here to increase this stretch is Tyus could take her right hand and bring it across this way. So she's rotating now into this position a little bit. So right arm comes across to the left. There's now a slight rotation, and it's going to increase the stretch on this line down the outside of the left leg, okay? So we're just breathing there into that stretch. So don't do anything just yet, but the contraction in a moment is going to be for her to press her left foot down and sweep it to the left through the floor, okay? So it's like a sideways contraction, all right? So let's take one more breath in. All right, and then from there, squeeze the front leg, push the foot down and to the left for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, move your forehead towards the wall. So we're increasing that stretch a little. And again, guys, we're going to do one more. So let's squeeze the leg, push it down, and sweep it sideways to the left for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a breath. And forehead moves forwards. If you're rotating to increase that stretch, you want to sort of pull your right shoulder across and over the left leg. And that will increase the stretch. And you just have one more round of breath in this position. Guys, I know it feels like quite a long time in these stretches. That's because it is. All right, and now to come out of there, slowly bend the knee. And then very, very slowly bring yourself out of that position, perhaps from high kneeling, a couple of those circles again, from that tall kneeling position, or from standing if you feel you need to. All right, so we're going to set up on the other side. So again, we have straight hamstring and then contracting in our outer hamstring. So Tyus is now placing her right foot up onto the wall. We have the left knee directly underneath the left hip. All right, and we start by squaring the hips. And then just perhaps softening the stretching leg knee a little bit. So you don't have to have that leg locked out straight, okay? For most of us, that doesn't feel great, all right? And now she's just going to move her forehead with the breath towards the wall. So again, you just take a breath in. And as you exhale, you just move yourself into that stretch, just very, very gently, exploring what it feels like. Maybe observing as you do this as well, does one side feel different to the other? Is your right hamstring tighter than your left or vice versa? And again, we just try to soften with the out breath. And it's with that out breath that we try to move perhaps into the stretch a little bit more. And when you're breathing, you take deep breaths into your belly. Nice deep inhale. And exhale, forehead moves towards the wall. We're just going to do a couple more rounds of breath here, and then in a moment, I'm going to ask you to back slightly out of the stretch, and then we'll be shifting that right foot across in front of the left knee, and that's where we're going to be doing our contraction. So let's just finish perhaps the round of breath you're on. Deep inhale, exhale. And then slowly when you've done that, just lift your chest up, and then move your foot across so it's in front of your back knee. All right, and then again, from there, you're going to square the hips, so you want to wrap your back hip forward. And now you should have noticed a fairly distinct shift in the stretch to the outside of your right leg, all right? If you want to make that stronger, again, left hand or shoulder moves across, so you're rotating in that position to increase that stretch, all right? And we're just moving always towards the stool bars and just breathing through that stretch, okay? So just taking a deep inhale and exhale, increasing a little bit. So as per the other side, we will do a contraction, which is going to look like us squeezing our leg, pressing down and sweeping to the right through the floor, okay? So getting ready, guys. Let's take one nice deep breath in. And exhale, increase the stretch. And now you're going to push your front foot down and to the right. So off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a breath. Wrap your back hip forwards and move yourself into a slightly deeper stretch. All right, and again, guys, we're going to do one more of those. So let's flex that front leg, push it down and sweep to the right. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, increasing that stretch. And we'll just work our way through a couple of rounds of breath here. Again, trying to soften, noticing how it feels. So it feels tighter than the other side. I know, like I said before, it feels like a long time. Last perhaps breath or so here. All right, guys, and so let's just slowly finish that stretch. Make our way out of that position. Now we will all come to standing from there, and again, just very gently circling the hips off. So you just do a few little hip circles one way, and then back the other way. So the next little combo that we're going to work on is going to be a quad stretch into a hip flexor stretch, okay? So we're going to be using, if you have a stick, we're going to use a stick for our quad stretch potentially, and it's more for balance than anything else. When you move into the hip flexor stretch, there are a couple of options, okay? We can have yoga blocks. I'm going to bring a bench over for Thais to have to rest her hands or her elbows, and if you have a chair and you want to use a chair, then have that handy, and we'll use those options when we get to it, okay? So to begin with, I'm going to get her to set up her quad stretch on the left. So she's going to come over, actually we're going to do this here on the floor. So she's going to come into this position, and she's going to step her front foot up, and the stick will be in the hand like this, okay? So when we're in a quad stretch, and again, she's going to do her left side. We start with the left hamstring, we'll start with the left quad as well. So when we're in this position, notice, guys, she's got her foot up against the wall. Her knee is in very close. Now, you have a couple of options. You could, if you're quite flexible, go top of the foot onto the wall and get your bum right up against your heel. Others are going to find it's fairly sufficient just to come into toe tucked under on the wall, okay? So she's using the stick for balance. Now, not everyone's going to need that. That's fine if you don't need that. And what I want you to do here, and if I come around to this side, is she's going to wrap her left hip or back hip forward. So she's squaring the hips, okay? And then from there, guys, what will happen in this position is you get pulled into an anterior pelvic tilt, okay? So whilst you're in your quad stretch, I want you to posteriorly tilt your pelvis, and that should do it straight away increase the stretch into this big muscle here in the front of your leg, so into your quad, okay? And for today, all we're going to do here is breathe for about 60 seconds into a passive quad stretch, which means we're not going to do any contracting, okay? So again, she's going to continuously be working to square the hips, so she's going to pull that left hip forwards, and she's going to tuck her tail under, okay? It's very easy in a quad stretch to kind of escape it by sort of poking your hip out to the side of the front leg like this. So what we want to do is wrap that back hip forwards and tuck your tail under, okay? Oh, what's this talking to? All right, so guys, we're just going to do a couple more breaths here, maybe 20 more seconds. And then from here, we will be shifting into a hip flexor stretch in a moment, not just yet. She's getting a bit excited. All right, so she's like wants to get out of the quad stretch. So guys, in the hip flexor stretch, like I said, there's going to be a couple of options. We can go, and I'll show you those options. We can have yoga blocks are going to be on the floor, and she can pop her hands on the blocks, or I'm going to pull a bench over and show you how she can rest her elbows as well, all right? So when we shift, I'll get Thais to move into the hip flexor stretch now. When we shift into this, I'm going to bring her back knee out from the wall a little bit. She's going to walk her front foot forwards into a slightly stronger stretch. And now we can place hands either here. Now for some of us, this position is going to be fine, okay? Others might find that you want to have, and I'll just show you this, and then Thais can tell me which one she prefers. Others might want to place their arms onto elbows onto a chair like this, okay, and just rest into that position. Now, which one do you prefer? The blocks, okay. All right. So, guys, there are options for this stretch, okay. So, perfect ones. There's not a right or wrong. It really depends on how you feel. In this hip flexor stretch, if you're really struggling to reach the floor with the hands, that's where the bench is going to come, or chair's going to come in. All right. So from here, I'm going to get her to take a really nice deep breath into her belly. And as she exhales, she's going to squeeze her left butt cheek and push her hip towards the floor. Okay? So now the stretch should have shifted out of the quad a little bit and more into hip flexor, right? So again, we'll contract here. 2 contractions. The first one is going to be to pull the back knee forwards through the floor. The second one is going to be to push the wall over with the foot, okay? So they're the 2 contractions that we're going to do. So let's take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, sink the hip down. All right, and then the back knee is going to pull forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a deep breath in. And as you exhale again, you want to squeeze your back hip and push it down towards the floor. All right, second contraction. Hip stays down as you push the wall over with your foot. Okay, so getting ready. Let's press back with the foot for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a breath. Soften your hip, and you've just got about 10-15 seconds here. So just 1 or 2 more breaths. And when you do those breaths, I really want you to relax your belly as you sink your hip towards the floor. All right, so finishing the round of breath you're on, slowly move your hips out of there. Again, maybe come to standing, guys, and do a few circles with the hips. So just one way from standing and back the other way. And I'll just give you a moment to transition over. It can be a little bit intense, that stretch. So just give yourself a little moment. All right, guys, so we're going to set up our quad stretch now on the other side. So remember, when we do this, we're getting fairly tight to the wall, and you just got to observe how one side feels to the other. So you might feel like your quad feels really tight on one side and not the other side. I know it certainly does for me. So Thais is going to get that knee close to the wall. And again, we have a couple of options. So you could go top of the foot on the wall, all right? So you would have sort of, I suppose, this position with your foot, or you can tuck your toe under, okay? It's kind of up to you to decide. And then the sit really is just for balance more than anything else, all right? So in this position now, she has her right knee at the back. She's going to wrap her right hip forwards to square the hips. And then don't forget, we want to go into that posterior pelvic tilt. So rather than twerking your butt out, you want to tuck your tail under, okay? And now again, we're just going to have about 60 seconds just literally breathing into a quad stretch. All right, so when we do the breath, it's super important part of the stretching, this kind of passive stretching. You want to take a really deep breath in. And as you exhale, you're just trying to let go of that tension in the body. So just relaxing your shoulders down away from your ears, you're softening your belly. You're allowing yourself to be in that position without holding on to loads of tension, okay? Now that's particularly important in our hip flexor stretch because people tend to sort of tense up when we're in the second part of this stretch, okay? So just take a few more rounds of breath there. We have about 15-20 seconds left. Nice deep breath in, square the hips, tuck the tail. All right, so let's finish the round of breath you're on in full. So breathe all the way in, all the way out. And then when you've done that, we're going to transition ourselves into that hip flexor stretch. So again, we're going to need perhaps those yoga blocks if you've got them. Now, of course, guys, you could use something else if you're at home. It might be a foam roller that you've got your hands on the elbows on the chair, or a couple of books. It doesn't have to be yoga blocks necessarily. All right, and then from here, you do need to be comfortable. So you should have realized from the other side, we're going to be here for quite a while. So if elbows on a chair makes you more relaxed, then you should do that, okay? Now, from here, she brought her back knee further out from the wall, and this allowed her to come into full hip extension here. So this back hip is open, all right? So let's just take again some nice deep breaths to the belly. And as you exhale, you just sink your back hip further towards the floor. So we're just really opening up to hip flexor. Now, if like me, you've got very tight quads, you might notice that you're still getting a lot of quad stretch whilst you're in the hip flexor stretch, and that's okay, okay? Think of it more of hip extension. So any of this stuff that needs to stretch is going to stretch in this position, all right? Once the quads are a bit more free, you can tend to get into hip flexors a little bit better. All right, so we'll just work our way through one more round of breath, and then we have those two contractions where we pull the knee forwards and then we push the wall down. All right, so let's finish the round of breath you're on. Now, just be mindful when you do the contractions that this hip doesn't lift up, okay? You need to keep the hip down as you do the contraction, all right? So let's pull your back knee forwards through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a breath. Exhale, sink the hip towards the floor. Second contraction is to push the wall over. So getting ready, and off we go. Pressing back for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a nice deep breath again. Sink your hip towards the floor, and you just have perhaps one round of breath in this position. Maybe 2, nice deep breath in and out. All right, so when you finish the round of breath that you're on in full, I want you to move out of that position slowly, and then just make your way to standing perhaps again, and just that little limber through the hips, circling off. You might do it from kneeling, it's up to you. Just do whatever you need to do, guys, just to relax a little bit through those hips. All right, so whilst you're doing that, guys, we are going to set ourselves up something called a modified front split, okay? So I'm not asking you to necessarily go into full front splits. Things that you might need, yoga blocks are going to be really handy. Maybe a chair or a wall to put a hand on somewhere just for a bit of balance. Or the other thing that's quite useful, and I'll just grab it, it's just out of shot here, is a rolled up yoga mat, and this might be a pillow if you're at home, okay? So essentially, I'll just quickly show you, but then Titus will get into the position. She's going to come into what we call a modified front split, where she has something like the mat or a yoga block or something wedged under the back quad to help her keep the hips square. And then maybe hands could be on a chair or on the floor, and we're just going to be sliding the front foot forwards into what looks like a partial front split, okay? So I'll just get her to set that up. So let's go left leg forwards. All right, now, again, options are going to be here for her to come into this position. Now, she's going to pop something underneath the back quad, okay? Now, what that does is it helps us avoid coming, so bend this front knee. She's going to come what looks like a lunge. So I want the focus to be on the back hip staying down. The front leg, we're not in a rush to straighten our front leg and get a strong hamstring stretch, all right? So now she's got hands onto the yoga blocks. This is a great option with the yoga blocks here, all right? Some of you might find, again, having like a chair in front of you to hold on to is going to be helpful here. And I don't want you to rush into a front split, okay? So now she's squaring her hips and she's focused on keeping the back hip down, okay? When we rotate our hips off square, it's not wrong, but it's more like a dancer split, and what we want to try and focus on in that more strict front split position, okay? So she's just taking a nice deep breath in, and then as she exhales, once she's set up the back hip, she might just want to slowly creep this front foot forwards and start to get a slightly straighter front leg. Now, it doesn't need to go super straight. And we're just going to breathe here for now. I know we took a while to set that up. Then have about 60 seconds or so breathing into that modified front split position. Now, some of you might have a slider and that, or a frisbee, and you could pop that underneath the front foot, and then you just slide yourself slightly deeper into that position. Some of you might almost have front splits, and you actually need to get rid of the mat and go lower down, which is fine as well. But I really want you to try and focus on keeping the back hip square forwards, so you're squaring the hips rather than rotating off square. We're just going to take a couple more breaths there. Nice deep breath in. Exhale, sinking that back hip down towards the floor. Last 10 seconds in this front split position. Last 5, 4, 3. Now to come out of here, you're going to have to start first by perhaps bending your front leg and using your hands to help push you out of that position. That's great. So again, kneeling, circling the hips off, a little bit of a limber in between, maybe pressing back into child's pose and just stretching out your lower back a little bit in between these stretches. All right, so when she's ready now, I'm going to get Thais to set herself up on the other side. And again, I will talk you through that setup. So one side, very common to feel different to the other here, guys, just like everything we do. So the back hip we prioritize. I want the support, whether it's a pillow or a mat, it's under the quad and it's helping you to keep this back hip down and square, okay? Hands are onto the blocks, and now she's thinking about the front leg. Once we've set that back hip up, she's slowly wiggling. And again, if you have a slider, that would make things maybe a little bit easier if you're on carpet. To slide that front foot forwards and make her way very slowly towards a front split, but without ever going all the way there for today, okay? And now from now, we'll have about 60 seconds. And again, she works with the breath here. So she takes a breath, and it's as she exhales, she perhaps sinks that front leg a little further forwards. And of course, if you're quite flexible and you have your front splits nearly, you get rid of the support. But what I do want the focus to be on is the back hip square, okay? So don't be tempted to sort of go lower but spin off square into a dancer split. We're working on our front split for today. All right, so just work through a few more rounds of breath here. Exhale, sinking your front foot a little deeper into that position. Some of you might notice that there's quite a restriction on one side and not on the other. You have about 15 seconds left. Last few rounds of breath here. Inhale, exhale, sinking down. Last 5, 4, 3, 2. To come out, use your hands as much as you need to sort of draw yourself out of that position. And again, find a little bit of a limber. So perhaps kneeling and limbering off. And then just to finish off, guys, I'm going to give you a couple of options for stretching out the lower back. And of course, I'm going to make sure Thais is comfortable with the options because she is pregnant. So guys, we've got either child's pose with wide knees and just stretching out here. Or for those who would like to, we could go to happy baby pose as well. So happy baby is where we lie onto our back and we hold. And actually the grip here is I'm going to get you to hold out. So you notice her arms are cutting across her shin, hands on the outsides of her feet, and her knees are very wide on the outside of her armpits. She's just pulling those knees down towards the floor, okay? So in this position, it's very nice just to soften through the hips and the lower back. So you might be in child's pose, the first one that I showed you, or you might be in happy baby here. In happy baby, it's quite nice because you can kind of do a little rock from side to side if you want, and just gently relax into that position, taking a few nice deep breaths in. And as you exhale, just soften there. And when you breathe, whether in child's pose or happy baby, I know it might sound silly, but direct the breath to your lower back. So really take a deep breath. Feel like you're breathing into your lower back. And as you exhale, just soften into that position. Another modified version for those who are in happy baby but might be struggling would be for her to release the feet, wrap her arms behind her knees, and just let her legs bend a little. And this is quite a nice version too, just to again, we'll just do a couple of breaths here, guys. And once you've done that, we are finished for today. Thank you so much. Thanks, Thais, for doing those little demos for us. Thanks, guys. Have a lovely day. Bye.